Hey everybody, welcome back to our Liberty House. My name is Lucas. We're going to do another day in the garden episode here. It's early July and we're really overdue for a good summer fertilizing. So that's what I'm going to go over today, some tips and tricks and just kind of overview of how we fertilize our garden this summer. So all we're going to need for this is a watering can and some liquid fertilizer, and this is earth juice. It's made here locally in Northern California up in Chico, and it's a natural based organic fertilizer, and we like to use liquid fertilizer in the summer. And if you see our garden beds in previous videos, we heavily mulch and we use pretty much all drip systems. So that's why I don't like to use granular fertilizer, because you have to water that kind of stuff in, and where the liquid fertilizer, we can get it down into the root system without having to overhead water and potentially expose our plants to too much humidity or getting burned in the water and heat. Especially, it's supposed to be 105 here in Sacramento. So what I want to do first is go over what kind of fertilizer we are going to use. So if you've seen our previous fertilizing videos, we talked a lot about early season stuff, high nitrogen fertilizers, because that's going to help your green growth. So we use like a 7-2-2, and we talk about NPK a lot, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. And we want a lot of nitrogen in the early stages of growth. We want that to help get nice big green growth like these sunflowers behind us and this green zebra tomato. But once your plants are established, you don't really need to promote more green growth. We want to promote more blooms and fruits and blossoms. So that's what I'm going to use. It's this Earth Juice Bloom Fertilizer. It's a 0-3-2, so there's no nitrogen in this, and it's 3 parts phosphorus and 2 parts potassium. And if you remember from previous videos or your own research, I talk about it all the time. Phosphorus is for fruits and flowers, and that's what we want to promote. I'm also going to use a little bit of nitrogen, and I've used this in the past. This is a vegetative growth from the same company. It's a 3-1-5, because we have some plants over on the arch trellis that are looking a little yellowing, and yellowing can be a sign of watering issues, but it can also be a sign of nitrogen deficiencies. So maybe those plants are a little bit nitrogen deficient. And I'm not going to do a full soil test. I'm just going to kind of go off of what I see, and we're going to do that. So we're going to follow the manufacturer recommendations on how much to use of this stuff. We're just going to mix it into this water container, overhead water. Now this is something that we just started doing the last couple of years, is summer fertilizing. We always like fertilize in the early season, and then just kind of let it go. But if you really, really want to get a bumper crop of fruits and flowers and tomatoes and whatever you're growing, it's smart to fertilize in the summertime. Those plants have been growing for a while. They've been using up a lot of the nutrients that you put in your soil, and now it's time to kind of refresh them and get back, get another late harvest, continue that harvest longer through the season. So let's mix this stuff up, get fertilizing. All right, this is one of the 2 beds I'm going to treat with both the vegetative liquid fertilizer and also the bloom promoter. And you can see here that this cucumber is looking a little yellow, not really the dark green colors we want to see. Over here, this is kind of the same thing. We are really hoping to get this bed to grow up over the top of the trellis, and I think it's just a little nitrogen deficient. We did a soil test before we planted, and we did treat with some nitrogen. It just seems a little bit lacking. So we are going to treat both of these with some bloom promoter and some vegetative growth. And one thing we really want to do is make sure we do this fertilizer after watering. And the reason we want to fertilize with liquid fertilizer after watering is we kind of want it to sit in the soil structure, in the soil bed. We don't want to water some expensive or, valuable fertilizer, and then have it go all the way down to the bottom of the soil bed. So make sure you give a heavy watering beforehand. Ours is on a timer, so it watered last night, early morning, and now that soil is saturated and all of these nutrients can sit in the root zone and be absorbed before watering again. We water our plants once every 4 days here, really deep, like a 30-minute watering, super deep. So make sure you fertilize with liquid fertilizer after watering. All right. So following manufacturer recommendations, it's 1 tablespoon per gallon. This is a 2-gallon watering container, but we're just gonna kind of wing it. 1, 2. 1, 2. All right, got my fertilizer here. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna kind of give a good broadcasting rate. And 2 gallons will cover about 50 square feet of watering, and each of these beds are 4 by 8, so just under 20 or just over 25 square feet. So we'll do 2 beds with this mixture. So I'm trying to avoid, obviously, the foliage, because you don't want to burn your plants. Just get it down there in the root beds. Especially like down here, these squash need some nitrogen. All right, this is the last bed we need to fertilize. I fertilized the arch trellis and some of the beds over there with both the vegetative growth and the bloom promoter. But this bed, which we call our tomato wall, plenty of videos on it. Check out the Talking Tomato series I did. Subscribe to our channel. Check us out on Instagram at Our Liberty House. You'll see all about how we grew these like 8-foot tall tomatoes. But this bed, I'm only going to fertilize with that bloom promoter, that 032. This thing obviously doesn't need any nitrogen. We're getting new growth constantly. I'm letting these sucker out. They're growing like weeds. But we've been harvesting baskets and baskets of tomatoes off of this, and it needs to probably get a little reboot. It needs some more phosphorus and some more potassium. So that's all I'm gonna do here. One thing before I finish up, I want to talk about the use of like chemical or inorganic fertilizers versus organic fertilizers. And one of the big things to think about when you use an organic fertilizer, it's really hard to over fertilize. If you use a chemical or inorganic fertilizer, you run the risk of burning your plants just because they're not accustomed to it. Where if you use an organic and a natural based fertilizer, it's really hard to over fertilize. They will pick and choose what they need, and the rest will just go inert in your soil, maybe used for later, feed the microbiome in your soil. So that's one of the big pros of using organic fertilizers, where it's hard to over fertilize. So you really should be fertilizing a couple times a summer through heavy growing seasons. It's just going to promote more growth, and it's not going to be any harm to your plant. So last bed, let's get fertilizing. Just like that, guys, we set our garden up for the last couple months of the growing season. We have a great long growing season here in Northern California, so I wanted to re-energize these and keep growing more tomatoes and whatever else. These pepper plants are doing great, and we want to continue that growing season. Thanks for your time here. Check out the rest of our videos. We have a lot of content, and appreciate your time. Thanks.